Welcome to Cohesive Friendship Unit. My name is Chris. I am here with Brian
What's going on?
and Jake.
Hey guys.
Guys, Microsoft unveiled the first update to their flight simulator series in over 10 years, Flight Simulator 2020 at E3, but there was recently a big preview event, so a lot has come out since then. And now that we know kind of the animal that we're talking about, we're going to dive into Flight Simulator and maybe more importantly how this tech can expand into other video games like the non-sim space and, maybe some other stuff. But real quick, guys, we're back on the giveaway train. We're giving away a copy.
Hype.
Hell yeah, we are. We're giving away a Steam code of the Crash Trilogy, again, on Steam at 1,500 subs. All you got to do is be subscribed. And, I'm going to pick a random sub once we hit that number. So, guys, here we go, right? Flight Sim. What do we think about it? Because this to me looks... This is like... I'm not a sim guy, and we've all played Flight Sim to at least in one way or another, and Brian's more of a sim person. But to me, this kind of caught my eye. If anything, the visuals caught my eye.
Yeah, it looks really good. It looks really good. The previous FSX, I don't know what people call it, but the last version that came out, like even with like updates and stuff, it didn't look like this. This looks fantastic.
This is
I mean,
insane.
the streaming thing does have me a little bit worried, and I'd like to see what it would be like over an actual internet connection. Like the guy was talking in the video about like how it dynamically changes the render distance or something like that, or it changes something depending on what your bandwidth is, so that you can still play the game and actually go through the bits of flying the plane versus having to wait for the pretty textures to load. I would be interested to see what it would look like being played on a real PC.
Yeah, and
But
so what Brian's talking about, and then we'll get Jake in. They're using a combination of Microsoft's Azure Cloud platform, which is going to be used in xCloud, is used in the business space quite a bit. They're using that in combination with Bing's satellite data. So like a lot of the big map people, Apple Maps, Google Maps, they're doing 3D renders of cities and stuff now and buildings. And that is where you're getting the roads and the buildings in this game or sim. That's actually pictures of the Earth. So it looks pretty damn good. And things like the water and the trees and the clouds are almost for better. They're graphics, but they look really good. And there's a number of reasons why they look really good. But that's why it looks so damn good. But what were you thinking, Jake?
Yeah, I was gonna say it also. I mean, I agree. It looks great, and as you said, I've played a little bit of Flight Sim. I'm definitely nowhere close to being able to actually fly a plane in Flight Simulator, let alone in real life. But I played Flight Sim like probably 10 plus years ago at this point, and it was nothing compared to this. So it looks good.
well, and they made some improvements to the simulation side too, right? Like they added in
Yes,
almost like kind of like a nudging, like push this button thing. Because like if you come at this with all of the, and this has been true of Flight Simulator. Like I remember trying to play Flight Simulator, and I think I was 4 or 5, and all I could do was crash the plane into the ground. I thought that was fantastic at the time, but like
right.
it's not something you could just walk into. It's a very like steep kind of learning curve
Yeah.
because it simulates. There are people that like simulate planes taking off and landing like online. They're doing the whole air traffic control bit and they're flying the planes and shit. But they're all on, it's an accurate simulation, and that can be really daunting to get into.
Yeah, and like kind of to your point, this is actually I think one of the cooler things about this, even though it may not apply to us directly, is that it is coming out on Xbox One. And that means a number of things. One, that means it should run on reasonable hardware, I'm thinking. Two, it should look pretty good on reasonable hardware. And 3, it will at least function on a controller, which would make me think it will have enough dumbing down for users that want that to be enjoyed on a controller.
I
Yeah,
don't know
and
that I'm. Yeah, go ahead, Jake. Sorry.
so this was kind of one of the smaller points they highlighted in the recent event. Not that any of us went, but from reading the information that's come out of
No, we were
that,
flown out to Seattle, Jake. Thank you,
yeah, I mean, I didn't want to
Microsoft.
make people jealous or anything, but one of the things that they're doing with this flight sim is they're adding in the option to kind of bypass a lot of the technical stuff. So one of the examples that I saw was your pre-flight checklist can be entirely skipped. So you can essentially just like load in and your plane is ready to take off. You're on the runway, etc., etc. Or if you're really into the sims, you can do the entire pre-flight checklist, ride up to the runway, to your takeoff, and do everything. So it seems like they have non-enthusiasts in mind, especially with the goal of releasing on the Xbox.
The one other big thing I want to talk about on the game itself is the potential for VR. And there's already been, so currently there's no VR support planned, but there's been a pretty big outcry in the VR, not outcry, there's been a pretty big positive response towards the developers to get VR onto the platform. And the developers have said they're going to do everything they can to make it work. I think this game would be so fun in VR. Like, this would be awesome, especially because, like, the way, one, when you're in a cockpit, you don't get as motion sick in general when you have that frame of reference, but two, planes move at like a speed that wouldn't bother most people.
Yeah, you can handle it.
Yeah, this game would be so cool in VR.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's part of the kind of tying into that. Like, if you had VR support, you could conceivably learn how to fly a plane without actually going through like without the physical portion of it, which you do need to fly a plane, but you could learn how to like push all the buttons and where everything is and what everything does without ever getting in a plane. And I think that, and this is kind of, it's kind of linked to simulation as a genre in general. The more you dumb it down, the less fun it becomes, because at the core of it, like, you're just kind of sitting in a plane.
Yeah.
Like, it's, for the most part, it's not very exciting. Like, train simulators the same way. If you dumb it down, like, if you don't have to know anything about the signals or like how the train works and that stuff, like, it's not really that much fun. You're just sitting in a train. The fun for me at least, and I think for a lot of people that like simulation, is the fact that it's simulated. Like, everything is there. You have all the buttons to push and you have to know what everything does, and there's, you know, it's not dumbed down. And maybe they can do that on an Xbox and make it so that there's still some sort of entertainment aspect to it beyond just being in a plane and looking at all the beautiful visuals and like trying to fly. Because like, if you're flying a long flight or whatever, you know, you're not going to want to sit and hold an Xbox controller in the same position for like 3 or 4 hours. Like, it's just not appealing.
Well, so
Right.
on the PC side, as like our kind of, not our sim expert, but our sim enthusiast over us, is there anything that like looks really neat to you besides like the integration with the cloud, and is there anything that concerns you a little bit from what you've seen?
No, on the PC side, I think if you turn all of like, and I assume there's an option to do this because the people that are buying this game are enthusiasts. They're not. You get some people that are like, okay, I want to buy. I've never tried this before, but I want to buy it. But you're not. You're kind of already set up to like this type of game if you're buying it.
Yeah.
And I think if you turn off all of the like helper things, or if you have like just the stuff that you need, like if you don't know how to fly a plane and they have some sort of highlighting thing that says this is, you know, this is what you need to do, and it kind of walks you through it, but it doesn't take control away from you. Like, it's just telling you what to do. It's not forcing you to do it.
Yeah.
I think this could be really fantastic. Or if you've played this game before, like the graphics updates look absolutely amazing. And if it's the same type of simulation that it's been for generations, on top of that, like, if you've played this game before, I think you'll probably like this. I think that's a safe bet. I wouldn't necessarily get it on the Xbox. I would say get it on a PC, but if you like this type of shit, you probably already have like a setup with
Triple
dedicated
monitors
controls.
and yeah.
Well, yeah, and like the
Right.
joystick and the yoke and the pedals and all that stuff. Like, I think for PC people, this is fantastic. I still don't know that I'd buy it on an Xbox because I don't know it would be that much fun.
Right, and they're definitely two different audiences. I mean, if you're a flight sim enthusiast, there's a lot that they're adding to this game, and since none of us are really flight sim people, we won't bore you with the super details. I'm sure you already know about them, but like if that's you're gonna get it on PC because, like you said, Brian, you have your setup, and it's neat that they're just adding in the kind of, I'll call it like the basic option for people like us who can't fly planes and just sit at a desk all day anyways, and all we want to do is crash planes into the ground and fly around in cities. So that's kind of cool. But to jump back for a second on the VR, I think this would be fantastic. And from what I've seen online, it sounds like they weren't planning on adding VR, or probably more likely they don't have the resources to add in VR yet. But obviously, this is going to be the perfect game for VR. And Asobo Studios, who's developing the flight sim, has a ton of experience developing for HoloLens, which Microsoft cut not too long ago. But I mean, the studio that's doing this has tons of VR experience, or rather AR experience in HoloLens case. So there's no reason to think that we wouldn't get VR at some point in the future. And I wonder if they'll even tie it in with some sort of Microsoft VR, HoloLens sort of thing in the future.
Yeah. All right. Well, so last question before we move on to like the games at leveraging this technology in the future. Brian's kind of into Brian is into Sims. And Jake and I have like dabbled in Sims. I'm more like a city sim person, which is way less technical than like simulating machinery or something. How do we feel about this game? Like, personally for me, this is something where like I wouldn't buy this outright probably, but I would pay the Game Pass fee to check it out for a month and, mess around with it a little bit. Like, this is cool. Like, as someone who has never bought a flight sim, this is compelling enough for me to at least want to check it out for as little money as possible, at least to try, Like, I'm into this.
Yeah.
To try.
I would consider trying it out. It's kind of our job to verify that something like this would be fun for non-enthusiast people, for all viewers out there who are wondering, is this really going to be easy enough for someone like me that doesn't have any flight experience? So I may check it out at some point just to see if it is fun. I have my doubts that it will be basic enough, but I mean, the technology they're adding in here is amazing, and there's a lot of steps they could take to bring it even further than where it is right now.
I would say that if there's one thing I would like on sale, I might actually buy this. It just depends really heavily on like your controller. You cannot play something like this with a keyboard. Like, if you've ever tried flying a plane in like Kerbal Space Program or whatever with a keyboard, it's really not possible. You need some sort of joystick. I have an Xbox controller hooked up to my computer, and I don't know that would really work. So I think it depends on how they set up their mouse control, how your out of the box experiences for someone that doesn't necessarily have a controller hooked up to the computer, or even have a controller for something like this at all. But it does come down to that's a lot of the experience, because you need to be able to control the plane. It's simulated, so you have to have the same sort of controls you would have in a real plane. And the closer they can get to that, the better they do with kind of like the default control mapping. Almost, it's something stupid, but the more they think about that, I think the better the experience will be for someone straight out of the box. Like I said, I might buy it.
All right.
Might.
Awesome. Let's talk about this in applications of other games, because I think there is huge potential for us to play, and I mean in the near future, maybe another flight game where buildings are kind of far away, but the idea of having a one-to-one scale Earth that you could feasibly put a game world in is pretty appealing to me. In certain, I'm not saying every game needs to do this, but I could 100% see applications of this. Personally, even just getting the geometry pulled for, like, instead of having an artist map New York City, you could just pull the geometry from like a data center and then texture it from there. Like, what do you guys think is possible with this stuff?
You could walk across the real United States in Death Stranding. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're right. Like, this technology is super cool, and I mean, I've known that this machine learning technology has been out there for translating satellite images into 3D maps, but this is definitely the first time I've heard of it being applied to video games. And this, I mean, even just something as simple as like starting from the real geography of the world, cutting that down to a smaller map for a RPG, and then maybe translating it into post-apocalyptic, or just handcrafting some elements to make a more realistic map would be super cool. I mean, think of Fallout 76 also had, I mean, obviously had a ton of problems, but you could just take the entire map of West Virginia, plop that in, start pretty much with a solid map design, cut a ton of development cost, and just kind of hand tailor it to fit what you need. That's a huge enabler for game development.
I think it's also really interesting for, like, it's obviously the biggest deal for simulation games, something that's actually trying to be accurate to the Earth. But if you think about something like historical based war type games, or like a Civ type thing where you're in Normandy, because it's the same, it's the terrain map of Normandy, like that. I think that would be really neat. And there's other things that you can do with this too. You can, like, it's basically a random, where do you want your map to be? Pick somewhere in the middle of nowhere and put some different textures on it and some fucking elves or whatever, and there you go. Like Jake said, it's your whole thing created for you.
It could be like, you could imagine, like, even if you could take you could run algorithms on this, like, Earth model with, like, the geometry and stuff, and you could expound on a No Man's Sky idea, but have planets with much better terrain generation,
Yeah, because it's got a real basis underneath, like basis. A real planet is the base for it.
Yeah, exactly. And so, go ahead.
And this definitely lays the groundwork for more. I mean, it's one thing to translate satellite images into 3D geometry, but that's not a far step from taking historic and current weather data and converting that into a weather model for a game, or doing that for some other, real life world data and adding that into a game to make it more realistic. And with the addition of something like Azure or Stadia or xCloud or whatever, I mean, just having the option to stream in parts of a game to make it more realistic is very fascinating.
Right, they're already streaming the game. Like, the game's already being streamed in those cases, so of course you can stream other stuff. So actually the idea where I like was kind of going about my life and decided to actually say, okay, we're doing a Flight Simulator 2020 video with the idea that we're also going to talk about further applications is I just got a new phone, so I'm still kind of getting used to some stuff. And I was going to go to a bar, and I Google Mapped the bar, but I guess like my Google Maps on my phone is a little bit special or whatever. And I didn't know. First of all, Google Maps is super high resolution on Street View. I accidentally got into Street View with my new phone. Google Street View is so high resolution now. It is ridiculous. But I was able to literally look at the bar that I wanted to go to, walk inside of the bar, and like go up the stairs of the bar and read the menu off the chalkboard on the bar. Like, that's the level of crazy detail where I was actually able to go inside of buildings and like walk around them.
In
And
Street
You
View.
know, some dude had to walk in there with a bunch of cameras all over.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like,
in Street
can
View.
I just walk around in here?
And while like, yeah, there is the question of like how far is too far, obviously with any of this, we're not that far away from like having at least public buildings being totally 3D mapped already. Like, we could have like a battle royale in Philadelphia where I live, where it's we already have the interiors mapped. We already have the like it's already done, you know, like from a geometry standpoint. It's just the possibilities are endless.
Yeah,
Isn't
that's just real
Philadelphia
life.
already kind of a battle royale?
True. But you know what I mean? Like, like we look at it now from the bird's eye view, but like,
I think that you have to be careful with what you do with this because
100%.
like it just has the potential to cause uproar. Like if you had any sort of game that was like focused on kill all of the other people in whatever city in the world, it's gonna be a problem. Like you just have to be judicious with it, I guess, especially with theming, or you know, if you're gonna use this, just chop it up, make it not real.
Yeah.
And
but
it's
like what I'm
creative
saying
license,
is like,
and there you go.
what I'm saying is like we think it's like unbelievable, and it is unbelievable what we're seeing with this flight sim where we're getting 3D models of, you know, large structures. Like, we already have the micro detail. Like, I can read chalkboards in bars up 2 flights of stairs. Like, that's the level of detail that we're already at right now.
Well, they said it was 2 petabytes worth of data.
Yes, that's what they're streaming. 2 petabytes.
That's insane.
Stupid. That's stupid.
Yeah. That's a lot. And in like a more sci-fi example, I mean, we have images of Mars, for example, from rovers, and we could do the exact same thing and apply that to space sims or sci-fi games. So we have a lot of pictures of the world and beyond, and this technology can enable a lot of things. So I'm excited to see what happens in the future with this technology.
Awesome.
Here's what I would say on the gone too far thing, and this is it. When you went in the virtual bar, nobody could hand you a beer. Like, I hope that this is used to expand people's curiosity and not like, you know, oh, I can see pictures and we don't need to go to Mars. Like, I could just see it. Like, we need to use this to make it's a hugely, I mean, I didn't think of this way until we started talking about it, but like, this is a powerful thing, and we should use it to kind of better ourselves as like humanity if we can. And you know, we'll use it for financial gain because that's how we're wired, but like, don't let it just turn into we're sitting in chairs and we're going to virtual reality bars, because like, you can't get a real beer at a virtual reality bar. And that's all I have to say about that.
All right. I think on that note, we are Good. So what should our flight sim enthusiasts do to get more great content like this, Brian?
Well, I would say if they're flight sim enthusiasts, I would say don't try to get a real beer at a virtual reality bar, but you shouldn't be drinking if you're flying a plane anyway. So once you've landed safely, go ahead and hammer your thoughts on this new update down on the word box. I'm sure a lot of people are really excited about this. And like Chris said at the beginning of the video, we are back on the give out game. So go ahead and click that subscribe button. And once we get some subs, we'll be giving out another one of those dank Steam codes. And if you watch this far in the video, you probably liked it. We have a ton more content like this on our channel, and we come out with new videos all the time. So throw us that sub, won't you? And smoke them if you got them, guys. That's all from me tonight, Chris.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Catch you guys next time.